Hello everyone, I hope you all are doing great and incredibly learning something every day. So today we are here again with the Azure Function series with Muralidharan sir. He is Azure Developer Lead and he has been contributing to our community in an incredible way. He is back again with the another series of Azure Functions that is regarding the unit testing your Azure Function. So let's learn something new today and I hope you already have activated your Azure passes. So please use your Azure passes to get started with. Over to you. Molisa.
Yeah, thank you. So let me share my screen.
Sure, sir.
Yes. So hope you are able to see my screen.
Yes, sir, we are. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, guys. So today we'll start with the Azure functions on unit testing. So okay, so today there is no kind of an theory session, so directly we'll get into the demo. So there is no slides here. So let me get into the Visual Studio. So let's create a new Azure function, and we will do a small modification. Then we will create a unit test project. Then we will test our Azure functions by using the unit test project. So hope everyone knows what is unit testing. So unit testing generally used to test a bit of code, whatever the developer has created it. Generally, the unit test will be written and tested by the developers. So in sometimes the unit test cases will be tested by QA team as well. Okay, so to start with, let's start with a new Azure function. So I'm creating a new project. So I'm going to create a Azure functions. So I'm just leaving everything as it is. So to make it very simple, so I'm not going to change until it's really required. So we'll be using HTTP trigger so that we can test it over the browser. So we are using the functions as anonymous and the HTTP trigger, and there is no storage account is used. So let's create the Azure functions. Okay, so the Azure functions is almost created. Yes. Let's go and see what is there. So open the solution explorer. So unfortunately, Visual Studio is not responding. Yes, it's back now. Okay, so here you can see there is a plain vanilla Azure functions with the same thing is there. So here we have the get method. It supports both the get and post, and this is the function name, and there is a debugger logs, and we are processing some of the query strings. So let's test this. We'll go and run this function. So as I said, I'm not going to change any of the code until it's really required. So it's doing the build. So the build succeeded. It's starting. Let me open an incognito window. A couple of more minutes. So it is starting the function application. Okay, so it started. So let's call this function via browser. So we'll open Chrome, enter the URL. Yes, so our functions executed successfully. So if we pass the query string as the parameter, name as the parameter, so then we got the our personalized message as well. So to make these functions very simple for unit testing, so we'll make a small code change. So we'll go and stop this Azure Functions. Okay. We will remove the logs. So we don't want to process the logs. Okay. I'll tell you why I am commenting this. And we'll take the query string and we are doing some process and we are returning some of the message. So again, to keep it very simple, so I'll just make this as a no query string passed. Okay. And so we'll keep it, this one is hello name. We'll remove the extra comma and spaces. So when we execute these functions, if we pass the query string parameter, so then it will print as hello on the name. If there is no query string passed, then it will just return as a no query string passed. So that should be fine. So we no need to test it. We are going to test this via the unit test. So that's the reason I'm not going to test this. So to start with the unit test, so let's go and add a new project. It's doing something. So let's go add new project. So we'll go and add the Microsoft unit test project. So here I already chosen, so that's what I'm choosing it from here. So I'm choosing the Microsoft test project. So again, I'm leaving the name as is. So we are going to use the .NET 6 with the LTS long-term support. Okay, so now we got the plain vanilla unit test project. So now we want to test the Azure functions. So the Azure function is in a different project. So we need the reference of this Azure function. So we'll go and add as reference first. So let's go and add a project reference. So we'll add the Azure function project over here. So now we got the Azure functions here. So now if at all, if you want to execute the Azure functions from here, so we have to go here like function app 6, the namespace and the function, then it's a run method. So the run method is in the functions app is a static method. So that's the reason we are not creating an instance. Okay. If you look at the parameters, so it is asking, there are two parameters. Okay, so one is the HTTP request object, another one is the logging framework or the logger object. So it expects two objects. So if we pass the two objects, then it will directly call the Azure functions, it will execute and we'll get the results. So to do this, so we need to create a request object first, then we need to create the logs. So first we'll go and create a request object first, then we will create the next one. For this, I'll create a new class to keep it simple. So I'll go and add a class. I'll call this as a unit test factory. Okay. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a HTTP request object and I will be returning it. Okay. So what I'll do is, so it's a public class. So I'll go and create an HTTP request object. Okay. So for this, okay, so we'll create as a static uh, property. So public static, so it should be an HTTP request. So the return type will be HTTP request and get. We'll keep it is very simple. So we are not going to pass any extra parameters though we needed. So we'll go and fix the references. So this is going to return the HTTP request object. So we'll just return null. Okay, so now we need a HTTP request. So we'll create a new context, HTTP context object. From there, we can get the HTTP request. So then, so where context equal to, so we'll be initiating a default context. So new default HTTP context. From this context object, we are going to initialize or return the HTTP request object. Okay. So to keep it very simple, return context dot. So now we are going to return this object. So we can avoid this. Okay, so now we got the HTTP request object and now we can initiate the our functions directly. Okay, now we'll go to the unit test, the main method, the test method. Okay, I'll come here. So now we got the result. Now we got the HTTP request object as well. So the run method requests the HTTP request object. So we can pass the HTTP request by just calling the unit test factory dot get HTTP request. So I'll click the unit test factory. dot get HTTP request. So I'm not passed any query string parameters, and for the logs I'm just passing as null. So that means I'm not going to do any logs. So that's the reason I have commented the log statement into the Azure functions. So if you come back here, so here that is the reason. If you pass the null, so it will throw an object reference error. So at the first time we are not going to use any logs. So that's the reason I have commented. And here I'm not passing any query string also, so we will be getting this message as the result. Okay, so we'll copy this message, we'll come back to the unit test project. So now we need to assert the result whether it is empty or not null. Okay, so now we will assert is not null result. So that means we are getting some result object, so it is not a not null object. So let's go and run this unit test project. So come to the unit test project, right click run test. So now what will happen is, so the test method one will be called, and it will in turn it will call the Azure functions. Then it will give you our results. So now it's executing. I'll just pin this. Yeah, so we got the test is passed. So if it is fail means it will give in a red colors. So it is passed. Okay, so if you want to test that, so assume that you are expecting a null result, but we are getting a not null object, then it should return a fail. So we'll go and test it again just to mimic that it's getting failed. See here, so the asset null is failed. For example, unfortunately, if you are passing the instead of HTTP request, you are passing a null, and you are expecting asset is result is not null, then definitely it will fail. I'm going to run. So definitely it will throw an exception on the Azure functions as the HTTP object is null. So the unit test will fail again. Come on. So I think it's returning from something from here. So yeah, still it returns some values. So that's the reason we got some values. So that should be fine. Okay. So our intention is not this. So we'll go and pass the next one as the query string. So assert not null of result. Okay, so now let's go and print the values. So to print this, so I'll just put our expected value equals. We'll copy the value from here. So this is a string that we are expecting as the output. So let me copy the string. I'll paste it into a variable. Okay, so this is the output that I'm expecting it. So let's go and see what is the actual value. So what I'll do is I'll store it again into a var actual value. So it is an object result. So if you look at the Azure functions, it's returning as an OK object results. So we have to get this object, then we need to convert into string, then we can see the values. So and it's an asynchronous method. So we have to use the either await, or we need to wait till the result or this till the execution completes. Okay, so now what we'll do is, so we will get the values from the result. Okay, because this is the one, it has the value. Okay, it is an OK object result. So what we have to do is we have to do a concatenations. So we have to do, sorry, not the concatenation, we have to do the typecast. I'll convert this object, I'll typecast, and we will get the value from the result object. Okay, so it is not having reference. Let's go and fix this. Okay, so now we got the result from the Azure functions. Okay, so it's a string. So if you want to still, if you want to convert, so you can do a convert. So we'll do string. Okay, so now we got everything as a string. Why? Okay, so it's action results. Okay. Okay, so now we have to assert it. So Let's see why he is failing. Yes, he's fine now. Okay, so now we got the values as object, and we can convert this into a string as well. Okay, so now both the object is in string. So now we will assert the actual value. So now first we will see whether it is a not null object. Okay, so then we'll put this guy. So now the actual value, it is not null, so we'll be asserting. Then we will assert equals. So we are going to compare two objects. One is the expected value as well as the actual value. So these are the two strings we are going to compare just to ensure. So we are expecting a value or the expected value from the Azure functions. Okay, so let's go and run test. So as we are not passing any query string parameters, so obviously the Azure function will return no query string passed as the result, and we are going to do an asserting as not null, and we'll be checking the values as well. Okay, so it says it's failed. Okay, so it says assets are equal. Okay, so that should be fine. So we'll go and see this run test. Okay, so now we see all these values are getting passed. So here we are expecting as a value as no query string passed, and we are expecting the actual value returned from the Azure functions also it is same. So that's the reason here also it is getting passed. Okay, so now what we'll do is now we think the Azure function should return as hello and some name. So that is the expected value that we are expecting. So say here it's Murli. Let's go and run this. So this one should fail because the expected value here is it's hello Murli, but the actual value from the Azure functions is different, so definitely it will fail. So it says failed. So here it says the expected value is hello Murli, but the actual value is no query string passed. So that's the reason this method is getting failed. Okay, so this is fine. So at some point, so we have to add the query string parameters. So what we'll go here is, so we'll go and add the query string parameter into the HTTP context. Okay, so let's go and create, we'll make a slight changes. So now we'll do context dot result. Okay, so we'll create a variable as HTTP request. We'll create a HTTP request object. We'll do context dot request. Sorry, context dot request. So now we got the HTTP request object. Now we want to pass the query string parameters as the function supports the query string. So we want to evaluate that also. So we'll add here. So we'll pass the query string parameter. So we'll go to the unit test factory. So we got this guy. So now in this request object, we'll go and add the query string. So to add the query string, so there are two ways. So one is we have the query as well as the query string. So the query is in a collection object. Okay, it's a kind of a query collections where you can pass on a multiple kind of in a dictionary that you can pass it. Whereas the query string, it's a straightforward string where you can do an append of your query string parameters. So first we'll go with a very simple one. So we'll directly pass with the query string. So we'll create a new query string object. Okay, so now it expects two parameters. Okay, so you can see here, so it is expecting a value, query string value for this. So we know the query string parameter key name is a name, and the value is whatever that we want to pass. Okay, so we'll pass here, this is here string value. We'll keep it as QS value, query string value. So what I'll do is I'll concatenate here as a query string, and I will return this context instead of context dot request. So here what we are doing here is, so we are passing the query string value, and we are generating in the request object, and we are binding the query string parameter as the query name equals to value, and we are returning the request object. So now we should be able to go and test it. So now we'll go to the test factory. Okay, we'll go to the unit test classes. So it needs a parameter, so we'll add query string values morely. Okay, so now let's go and test this. So run test. This should get passed because we are passing the expected values hello Murli, and the actual values also we are expecting as hello Murli, so it should get passed. Yes, so it is getting passed. So we are getting the expected value and the actual values are same. So so this is the very simplest way where you can write the unit testing for the Azure function. Still, if you want to extend these logs, so there are multiple ways where we have to create a new class called logger. Then we have to implement this ilogger method from the Microsoft extensions. So then sorry, Microsoft extensions dot logging, then we can pass the logs, then we can validate the logs as well. So for at the initial stages we don't require the log statements, so that's the reason I have excluded. So now we are not passing the logs, but still we are passing the query string to validate it. So now here we are passing just a query string as the directly binding to the query string parameters like question mark name equals to this one. But still you can use the next one is we have the query collections, sorry, the query. So now we can do request dot query. So it is an iQuery collection, so we can create a new query collection object. Then so it expects the dictionaries, for example. So we have to it oh, sorry, it should be query collections. So we'll add the query collection. So we added the namespace. So it expects a dictionary. So the dictionary is nothing but the key value pair. So it expects both the key value pair for the it expects both the key value for the from the dictionary for the query string key as well as the query string values. So you can use the query string values, then we can use this for this. So it needs a dictionary with the type called key is string, and it expects the primitive string value. So what we'll do is we'll create this one. So we'll create static object, and we'll return the dictionary. So private static. So we are going to return a dictionary. Okay, so the value is string, and it expects the string values. So it is from a different namespace. We'll add that. Strh string values. So we'll add this guy. Okay, so we added that. Uh, get query collection. So we'll return query string collection. So we'll do string string value. Okay, so what we are going to do here is here we are going to initialize the new dictionary object, and we'll be returning the results. So to simplify this, so where us query string collection equals to new dictionary of type. Okay, so this is the type that we are going to return. So I just go and initialize with that. Okay, then we are going to add key and value pairs. Okay, so it's nothing but the key comma value. So this is the query string that we are creating it. So this is the dictionary that we are creating it. Okay, so extra. Okay, and we'll be returning this QS collections. So query string QS collection. So this is wrong. Okay, so now we got the query string collections, and we are returning also. Okay, so we initialize a new dictionary objects with the type key and the string values, and we can use this. Okay, so now we'll use this collection here. So we'll return this fellow, and what values that you want to pass. So from here we can pass, so string QS name and the value. So what I will do here is I'll copy here, I'll initialize with this, I'll pass these two values to get the dictionary object. Yes, we are done. So now what will happen is, now when we are calling the HTTP request object, so we're going to pass the query string name. So that is nothing but the name and the value for the name query string. Okay, so now we'll come to the unit test class. We'll go and change. So this should be name, and this is the query string name, and this is the value for the query string. Okay, so why this is okay. Okay, so now we are passing both the query string parameter name as well as the query string parameter values. So still we are expecting the same name. Okay, so instead of this, we'll make it as Azure Developers. So we are going to make this also Azure Developers. Okay, so let's go and run this. Let's go and run test. So it's executing. Yes, so everything is passed. So now we can see, so now initially we don't have any query string parameters, then slowly we added a one query string, and now we have added for both the query string name as well as the query string values, and we have seen both the results and what should be the expected value and how to get the actual value from the Azure functions. Then we have done with the not null assertions, and we did the assertions for both the values are equal or not also. So at this point, so I want to end my session. So if there are any queries or any questions, please feel free post it in the comment sessions, or you can reach out me on the LinkedIn or in the Twitter. Then I'm happy to help you. Lakshit, that's all from my
Yes,
side. So over to you.
yes, sir. So, guys, if Yash, Kumar, if anyone has any questions regarding the Azure function or the unit testing, just let us know in the comment section. Otherwise, you can just connect with Murli sir on LinkedIn too. I'm just sharing his profile on the chat box. Just allow me a second. Yeah. Okay, so here it is. You can just connect with him on over LinkedIn, and if you face anything, any doubt, any query, you can just get connected to him with proper screenshots and everything. So thank you, sir. Thank you for joining in, obviously, and thank you for coming in for the Azure Function series. And guys, those who haven't watched the previous sessions of Azure Function series, you can just go to our Azure Developer Community website, and we'll be making a playlist very soon. Again, you can rewatch all those sessions again. So don't get worried. All these sessions will be available through Azure Developer Community website also. So thank you guys. Thank you for joining in. Thank you, yes. Thank you everyone. Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming in and sharing your insights about Azure Functions and unit testing.
Mhm.
I hope the students got the insight, the enlightenment about the Azure function. So thank you, sir. Thank you for joining. Thank you.
Thank you, Lakshit. Cheers. Bye bye.
Bye bye.